Okay, cool. Hey guys, so I made a video previously about a lot of the things that I did not really like too much about corporate America, and I think today I want to talk a little bit on the other side because I think not as many people really talk about the more positive sides, about things that I actually do kind of miss about corporate America occasionally there and there, ever since I left a little bit over 1 year ago. Because I think a lot of people tend to rant about corporate America, and I did too in my previous video. But today I want to look a little bit on the other side about some of these things that I miss. So I think ever since I left corporate America, one of the things I realized that I did occasionally really miss, especially in the beginning, is the stable income that I used to be able to make initially, and with a slight asterisk next to that. And so the reason why I say this is because the thing I really miss when I first left corporate America was the fact that, like many people say, I was able to show up to work and more or less know that I'm going to be able to collect that stable salary, about a couple $1,000s every single month consistently rolling in, and I didn't really have to worry too much as long as I kept my job. But the reason why I still put a little bit of an asterisk that it depends is because corporate jobs, while they do seem stable, which they are kind of initially, I do know, though, I think it's important to bring up a point, is that many corporate jobs may not actually be as stable as you think they are, especially today, because there's such a high turnover rate in so many different corporate companies that the reality is that when you work in a corporate job, because you're always still at the mercy of someone else, you can still get dropped and you can still get left out of your company at any moment for reasons that sometimes, as I mentioned in the last video, that you cannot control at all. Sometimes you can get dropped just because your company goes bankrupt, or because the economy goes bad, or they want to downsize. It could even just be for ridiculous reasons like favoritism. Maybe your boss just doesn't like you. Maybe your boss only wants to keep 3 out of 5 employees, and then the other 3 either had a family connection or is better looking than you. So but I still nonetheless do agree that if you ever go become an entrepreneur, especially in the beginning, it is a crazy roller coaster ride because you never know when the next paycheck's coming in. But that's why most entrepreneurs are very resourceful. But nonetheless, I do still miss the stable salary that you were able to make in the beginning initially. Okay. And then I think that following that point, I think the second thing that I really do occasionally miss about corporate America is just how fast it was to generate money in the very beginning. And I guess that it's really about the beginning. And I think it's that when you work in corporate America, compared to being an entrepreneur, while your potential as an entrepreneur is significantly higher, the beginning, though, I think it's fair to say, is that most of the time in corporate America, your beginning will be much easier because you don't really have to put down any kind of down payment most of the time. Because when you become an entrepreneur, the difficult thing is a lot of times if you decide to leave corporate America, for most of the beginning, you can potentially drop a ton of money to invest. If you start a company, you might have to buy supplies, you maybe have to hire employees, but nonetheless, the majority of businesses out there, you're always going to have some kind of cost. Ad cost, supply cost, fees, to get different services done. And it can be very difficult, especially in the beginning, because you're putting in a lot of money and investing a lot of time as an entrepreneur, and you don't even know if you're going to get any kind of return on investment. But you're really doing it for the experience, the potential that you can maybe gain, and at the end of the day, hopefully, some life experience and lessons learned. But if you are trying to generate money very quickly on the very beginning, especially if you graduated college and you have student loans of some kind, nonetheless, working in corporate America, you don't really have a down payment. You kind of just start, you join the company, and you're able to make money from the very first day. And that's one of the things that I do kind of miss when I look back at my days in corporate America, that for most of the beginning, and even today, I probably would have been richer, especially because I was working a STEM job. The other thing I think when I look back at it that I do kind of, it's one of those things, like I personally kind of miss, I don't fully miss, it goes kind of both sides, but I can see it being something that would really benefit a lot of people. And I think it's that when you work in corporate America, you are more likely to be disciplined because you have a boss out there and other coworkers to give you a little bit more external pressure to have to get your work done. And I think that's something that's a little bit contrasted, because ever since becoming an entrepreneur, one of the things I find is that when you become an entrepreneur, nobody is going to be there to hold your hands anymore. Even if you have a mentor, which I did have multiple mentors to really be able to help guide me when I first started building up my first business. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, that drive, nobody is going to be there to micromanage you, which is really awesome. That's why I say it kind of goes both ways, because you don't have a boss around, it's really awesome because you have total like creative freedom to do what you want. But at the same time, you do have to have the discipline. And I know many people, if they didn't have a boss right by their side, if they didn't have some kind of external pressure from someone else, if they didn't have validation from others, they probably just wouldn't do much. They would probably procrastinate, they would wait for time, they would just sit, it would be unproductive, and things would just be very slow. So I think another big change that I do kind of miss is the fact that you always had someone out there to kind of help you out more or less. And then ever since becoming an entrepreneur, all of that drive to get you to build up your business really has to come from within. It has to come from your passion, your love for the craft. You have to basically be obsessed. The positive side though to being an entrepreneur is that because you have a lot more freedom to create the job that you want now, you are more likely to be able to enjoy it. But nonetheless, that means you do also have to know yourself. You have to know what your goals are. You have to know what you're trying to build and what kind of company and business and what service and value you want to provide for society. And that drive has to come from within, because many people, when you become an entrepreneur, especially if you're trying to create something new and cool, many people might not even believe in you. Many people might say no. You won't get as much validation per se. And your goal is to really be able to shuffle around and find the people that believe, because as an entrepreneur you represent a very small group of people in America, especially a small group of college grads, if you did graduate from college, because many college grads ultimately do end up becoming employees. It's the very small group of people that have the courage to kind of just make that leap of faith and pursue their dreams, build up their businesses, and go solo. So that's one of the things that I do miss about corporate America. And I think the final thing that I really do occasionally miss about corporate America, and again, this goes back to it happens in the very beginning, I think, is that, but even today, it still kind of somewhat occurs, is that it was very easy. Not in the sense, I talked about this a little bit in my previous video, but it was very easy in the sense that ever since I became an entrepreneur, and I think it was expected, is that while you do have a lot of creative freedom to kind of control your life, you actually have to do something to build it. I think the biggest difference is that like it's kind of like building a house. When you become an entrepreneur, more or less, you are taking either a totally not even a worn out, you're basically taking a totally empty piece of land and you have to build it from scratch and you don't know what it is. But when you become an employee, on the other hand, you are basically joining a house, a community that already exists. All you're really doing is just executing a very specific task. Maybe you help with the windows, but nonetheless, it was very easy because you didn't have to be so diversified in the skills that you knew. You didn't have to be able to picture be able to look at the big picture, and it was very easy in the sense that you kind of just showed up to work, you did what you did, and then you went home. You knew you had that stable paycheck, and you basically just went home, and then you could go drink at bars, party, and do whatever you wanted, and spend time with your hobbies. But I think that is actually one of those things. But I say that it also, again, like really depends how you look at it, because I found that when I worked in a corporate job, there were actually some ways that it was actually just as difficult. Because when I worked in a corporate job, I remember like having to wake up, especially because, for example, like in one of my jobs, I worked in construction. My hours at my construction company was about 7 a.m. to about somewhere between 4 to 5. But if I stayed at that company for one more year, it probably would have jumped to something around 6 a.m. to somewhere between 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 p.m. So it tells you, like, that's not an easy lifestyle, you know. As you know, to have to work a job where I have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning just so I can leave my house at 5 to get to work at 6, and then work all the way until at best 4 p.m., but potentially even 8 p.m., and even sometimes weekends. And this is my job, and I can only imagine how it probably also applies with many other prestigious corporate jobs. I mentioned this, definitely investment banking, if you're on some kind of job that like doesn't offer overtime, it is very likely to happen because your boss knows that they can keep you there and it doesn't cost extra. So it kind of depends how you look at it. It wasn't an easy lifestyle, but nonetheless, I do think it was a lot more simple than having to just run away and build something from scratch. So it kind of depends. There's easy parts and not so easy parts about it, but I do miss the ease of having that peace of mind, just showing up, not thinking too much most of the time, and then just collecting my paycheck, going home, having drinks at the bar, going to happy hour, you know, playing video games. Because now as an entrepreneur, I always have to be thinking. It is so fun. It is very, very fun to always think about that new idea, and that's what I love about it, because as an entrepreneur, you're always thinking, like, I know that even in the last couple of weeks, I've had to always constantly think about, like, oh, maybe I should work on this project. Should I get into writing? Should I work on this YouTube video? Should I, you know, go work on this film project that I'm working on right now behind the scenes? Do I want to spend time with myself? So it really does go both ways. But nonetheless, the recap is that life was definitely much easier in the sense that mentally you didn't have to think a lot. You kind of just followed the rules. But the lifestyle was still difficult being in corporate America in its own way. So it depends. But the easy parts about it, that's the stuff that I really, really do miss. So I didn't want to make this video too long. So I just wanted to wrap up this video really, really quickly to say is that, so there have been definitely many, many days where I do occasionally miss having a traditional job. So being an entrepreneur, being a freelancer, following your dreams, it's not perfect. And I know especially in the beginning, it was very, very difficult coming out. It was very, very fun. And I think that I was lucky because I started a lot of my projects at a very, very young, I mean, I'm still young even to this day. I'm still, you know, single, I'm still young, but it nonetheless, I know is that especially in the very, very beginning, one of the biggest difficulties I think I faced was tightness in money. Because when I started my first company, I was making money actually from the get-go, but it was still very, very tight, because in order to continue to scale and in order to continue to work on other stuff, I had to always constantly pump in more money. So it wasn't like I could just collect like $2,000 and keep it all for myself and spend it on whatever I wanted. It was like I would collect $2,000, but then I would have to, and it wasn't $2,000. In the beginning, I made maybe like just a couple hundred. But I would have to like make a couple hundred and then maybe reshuffle and roll over a couple of that hundred into the next product or the next side hustle or the next project. So it wasn't like I was able to just collect it and just enjoy, you know what I mean? Like I still had to do something with that money. And that's one of the biggest things I miss, is that when you start in the beginning, it's just a massive chase of just, you know, work hard, fail fast, move fast, run fast, work hard, work fast, and then just go. It basically was like, I wouldn't even say it's a marathon or a sprint. It was both. It was a marathon in the sense that this is a long-term thing. It's not like a get rich quick, or it's not like a go quick kind of scheme, but you still have to work fast. It felt literally like you had to run as fast as you can, but it was still a marathon. So it was epic. But I think that as a whole though, is that the mentality that I had in starting my business was, I felt that I had a lot of I saw a lot of potential in starting a business, and I wasn't fully satisfied in my old corporate job for that reason. So I think that I made that lunge knowing that because I was still young, it really could have potentially been a now or never kind of thing. So while I had the chance, I decided to make that leap and go full force into starting my own project and following and pursuing my business. And I know that I think my mentality was that at the end of the day, if anything, I'd be able to walk out with a lot of great memories. And I'd be able to walk out learning a lot of things and knowing that at the end of the day, if you didn't measure the success of something by the results, but you focused it more on the journey, I had fun. And I know that was, I think, what I was striving for. It was that at the end of the day, I would be able to tell myself and look back at my history, right? That during this time period, I spent it doing something I really, really loved. It was very challenging. It was very, very difficult, but I took a shot. And I have many stories that I can now share, and I can now put on this YouTube channel, and I can share with people that I meet in real life. And that was the goal that I was really, really striving for. So yeah, I mean, when I look back at it, there are still many, many things I do occasionally miss about corporate America, but I left for a reason. And I think at the end of the day, it has been incredible. Like, life outside of corporate, it's been difficult at times, but the memories that I think I was able to develop have been so priceless, that I think in a lot of ways, it was probably one of the greatest gifts of being left unemployed, in the long-term grand scheme of things, because everything from like starting my business, the stories, this channel, my side projects, me working with my favorite celebrities in the film industry, all that I do, and the new friends that I've met, the people that the friends that I meet that also believe in the same life philosophy as me of chasing passion and dreams. It's been crazy, but it's been a blast. And I really do think it's definitely not for everyone. I may have to make a video about who entrepreneurship is for and who it is not for. But I think that, like, looking back, it's been amazing. And I think that's the general idea that I really wanted to share in making this video, of giving a little bit of the outlook on the other side. If you are in corporate America, to know what it's like on the other side that a lot of people generally don't talk too much about. I think deep down inside, when I look back at my time in corporate America, I think that if I decided to stay in corporate America, I personally, I don't think I would have been unhappy in the grand scheme of things, but I do definitely believe that at my old corporate job, if I stayed in corporate America, while I would have been very happy collecting a stable salary and making that stable income, and I would probably have been richer, especially in the beginning, I would have always had to live life with that feeling like I was very happy and satisfied, but there was always that feeling like there was something even better out there. It was kind of like that, it kind of felt a little bit like, I mean, it maybe sounds a little bit terrible to say this, but it kind of feels like being with a girl of some kind, in my case, and you really love this girl, but you kind of almost feel like you maybe got with this girl because of external pressure or because people told you you had to, and you really love this girl per se, but at the same time, you still feel like, you know what, there's gotta be a girl even better out there. You know what I mean? I know that might not be the best analogy because we're talking about a job versus a human being, and you gotta treasure people, but your career is pretty important also. But yeah, I mean, I think looking back at it, I think if I had stayed in corporate America, I don't think I would have been totally unhappy about it. I definitely think I would have had days that I would have complained and wished things were better, but I think that the general idea is, I think that I would have still been pretty satisfied. I mean, I definitely would have had, especially in the beginning, a much more smooth, but sometimes even a little bit boring, or at least not to say boring, but not as exciting and adventurous as the life outside of corporate America. And I think it's that deep down inside, I think I would have been happy staying in corporate America, but I always would have had to spend my life living with that feeling like there was something else better that was out there. There was something else cooler, there was something else that was more fulfilling, there was something else more adventurous, and there was just something, there was just a level that you really have to lose a certain something to create the space and void to welcome that potentially incredible thing to come in. And that's something that we had to let go of, was my old corporate job. And to fill it up, it was to be filled with the life of being an entrepreneur. And it's been really crazy but amazing at the same time. And I think these are just some points that I really want to make about the two sides about corporate America. So hopefully this gave you guys a little bit of an insight. But as always, I'm making more videos. Subscribe, like, comment. If you don't like it, offer a comment about suggestions, or do you agree, do you disagree? And I'd love to interact with you guys. So thanks again for watching, and until the next one.